Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST, Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Striker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and this is the place. If you want to dominate, whether it be season-long, DFS, straight-up wagering, whatever it is, we've got you covered. Quick reminder, if you're new to the show, at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles you're going to want to check and make sure you're following along. Just a great group of people here, just a bunch of folks that truly love sports. Coming off of our Super Bowl wins, we're all excited, but we're ready to reinvest. It's time for baseball. Joe Pisapia, the author of the Fantasy Black Book. Come on in, my friend. First and foremost, I want to say hello, and then I want to say happy baseball.
Yes, happy baseball. You could tell the pep in the step from Matt Striker today. His favorite time of year, spring training. Football goes away for a little bit. We'll do some free agency stuff. We're going to do NFL draft stuff, but it's going to be wall-to-wall baseball for the next few months around these parts in the mornings. And we're happy to have everybody here. And of course, go get your Fantasy Baseball Black Book on Amazon. And as Matt Striker writes his love letter to baseball for the next 2 hours, Matt, a belated happy Valentine's Day to you. Matt, do you know, by the way, why the ladies love Anthony Rendon?
Because Anthony Rendon doesn't like to play baseball, loathes going to the ballpark every day, and is a rich man. No, I don't.
Because Anthony Rendon doesn't play games.
It was the setup, and I just didn't see it coming. Okay.
Cool. That's all right. That's all right. Here we go. We're off to a big start. Baseball is back, everybody, with the headlines. And, of course, making headlines this week, the Boston Red Sox signing Alex Bregman. So Bregman gone officially from the Houston Astros, signs a 3-year, $120 million deal with the Boston Red Sox, which gives him a lot of flexibility. Now in that infield, he's, can play third, he can play second, he can play all over the diamond. He'll play eventually whenever Trevor Story stops playing. That guy doesn't play games either. But a big signing here for the Red Sox, who are looking to push in here and get back into relevancy in the National League East. And look, Bregman last year, I think a good season, not a great season, scored 79 runs, drove in 75 at 26 homers, hit 260. A good defender, a guy that, hasn't quite, I think, reached the heights that people thought maybe 4 or 5 years ago that he would become a megastar in the league. He hasn't quite become that. Last year, I thought he would be a bit of a value, and he just kind of ended up being more of the same, which is good, but not great. He hung out for a longer contract. He got it. And Matt, this is an interesting signing here too, because now we're having a much different version of the Houston Astros, right? No more Kyle Tucker, no more Alex Bregman. So some big changes there, but also now you do have eventually some outs here where if you want to move Rafael Devers to first base full time, if Trevor Story is not your answer, if you're looking to move some guys around the infield, Alex Bregman gives you a lot of flexibility because he is a plus defender, does have a good bat, and as we'll look in later, some good numbers in Fenway Park. So finally, all the big free agents have landed. It took a while. We got Alonso 2 weeks ago. Finally, we got Alex Bregman now as well. So let's talk about Alex Bregman and what this means for the Boston Red Sox. And does it mean that maybe we have to wait a little bit longer for some of these kids like Roman Anthony and perhaps guys like Christian Campbell too?
Well, those are the insurance policies. But if you're new to the show, I'm going to generally speak in 3 kind of terms, and it's going to be season-long fantasy, DFS, or straight-up wagering. So here we are before the season starts. We're hearing a lot of buzz about the Red Sox. And actually, I think it's our producer, Cool Head Luke, got in our ear earlier. I asked for everyone's baseball hot takes, and someone, I think it was Luke, was like, yeah, I don't think the Red Sox are as good as everyone says they are. That's the key. The public money is in on the Red Sox now more than ever. So if you look at the Bregman position and where he'll fit into this team, let's talk about it, right? We're wagerers, we're fans. I think he'll hit third between Devers and Casas. Then you want to look at the pitching staff from there. It's Garrett Crochet, it's Houck, it's maybe Bayo, Crawford, Giolito is there. Then you have a bullpen of Hendricks and Araldis, and I think that's where this team gets dicey. That's where you have to look at this team overall. But Bregman as a fit from a DFS perspective, yeah, sure. I never wager on Bregman unless he's actually hot. I kind of fell off of him with Houston. I think it's good that he moves on. Maybe a new environment makes him more wagerable. But as a team, this Red Sox team still has some questions that need to be answered for a lot of people. There's my overall synopsis.
And I agree. Like I like Bregman playing second base. I think it's smart. I like him being reunited with Alex Cora, his old manager, too. I think for me, this was always the predicted landing spot. I always felt like this is the duo that was going to get back together and made the most sense. And, I think the Red Sox have made some mistakes in the past here, giving big contracts to guys like Trevor Story and not paying guys like Mookie Betts. So now you got to dig yourselves out of that hole a little bit. Bregman right now projected on Fangraphs hit third in that lineup. So that's a good spot in terms of RBI potential and run score potential. He's going to hit in between Devers and Casas. That's a good spot with Jarren Duran, the leadoff spot. But I'm with you. That second part of the order is a little suspect. And what you're going to need is eventually the guys like Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell and some of those rookies that are on their way and on their way quickly to the Boston Red Sox to kind of take that next step and become everyday players at some point this season. Could be as early as breaking camp. We'll see. The rotation did get better, though. We're going to talk more about that Red Sox rotation and some of the winners and losers of the offseason. But one of the big winners, obviously, the reigning defending champions, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are bringing back Clayton Kershaw. What a surprise. He's going to start the day on the 60-day IL. That's just kind of par for the course. So what we're going to get out of him, we don't know. It seems like a bit of a long shot, too, just like last year. So probably in fantasy, we're going to fade that. But already good news coming out of Marlins camp. Sandy Alcantara is going to be the opening day starter. Now, he missed all of last season with Tommy John surgery. If you go back a couple years ago to 2023, he somehow soldiered through. You knew he wasn't healthy. You knew he was kind of shell of himself. 184 innings over 28 games. Some of the stats were just down all the way around. But just a couple years ago, this guy was a Cy Young winner. This is a dude who has all the potential in the world, and now you're getting him at a discount. The expectations are that he is more than a year removed from this surgery, that he can go out there, give you a full season, and at some point could be a big difference maker on the trade block because the Marlins are not a team that looks to compete. So I think it's very important for Alcantara to get off to a good start. That way, some contending team gets aggressive and goes after him. Could be a team like the Yankees, could be a team even like the Mets or someone like that, and maybe non-New York markets too. You could see a Kansas City Royals maybe push in all their chips for another big-time starter if they are competing this year. So Alcantara, right now, currently, looking at the ADP over on Fantasy Pros, you get that consensus ADP. He is still a very big value, and I think a player that most of us are looking at to at least be a number 2 type starter. Whether you want to put that number 1 tag on him, I don't know. But he is currently number 51 overall. Here are the names going around him. Luis Gil, Reynaldo Lopez, Yusei Kikuchi. Those guys are all going ahead of Sandy Alcantara. I don't know about you, but I think I'll take Sandy over those guys. What do you think?
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you actually, this naturally has evolved into this conversation because ahead of so many drafts, you talk about ADP a lot. And when Joe talks, a lot of people listen. And I'm not just saying it, right? Because he writes the book. He understands how the insiders think. ADP, as Joe says, is just polling. So if you're doing that whole thing where you're just drafting with that small window of players around you, average rank, ADP, whatever, to Joe's point, you lose sight of some of these better players. So a guy like Sandy Alcantara is sitting there. And look, from a wagering perspective, Sandy Alcantara in isolation is great. The Marlins do have some pop. I do think there's questions in the bullpen that will eat into the win equity, but we can have those deeper conversations. But overall, if a guy like Alcantara is sitting around some of those other names, that's because of regression that people think because he's out of their mind. That's wrong. So, Joe, good point.
Yeah, and I'm sure, after this news that ADP will start to rise a little bit. And of course, we're looking for good health. I don't care so much what happens in terms of productivity for Sandy Alcantara in spring training. This is a guy getting the feel back for pitching. I don't care about results. I just care about health. Is he coming out healthy? That's all that I need to know. And he is not the only guy returning from Tommy John or returning from injury. There's a lot of guys on their way back in 2025. In fact, someone is going to be comeback player of the year in the National League and the American League. When we come back, we're going to take a look at who those names are and give you some of our favorite early bets before spring training kicks off. We're going to try to get ahead of the markets. We'll be right back after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, giving you everything you need in order to dominate. Now, what I have found from doing these shows with Joe over the last half decade or so is that the early bird definitely gets the worm, especially with all the wagering opening up in different states, the ability to cash out. Everyone has a different app, a different approach. Getting in early, finding a good number, and then as something plays out, being able to cash out. That's almost like a win-win. So we're talking MLB awards, futures. We're starting with the AL Comeback Player of the Year. Now, a lot of times you get really good odds and you're able to really get some bank coming to you at some point in the season, almost like a tax return, if you will. Let's talk some names here. There are more than these, but these are the three that stand out. Shane McClanahan, pitcher for the Rays. I'm all over him for a myriad of reasons. We'll get into it, Joe. Jacob deGrom, a public name. A lot of people will revisit his greatness. And Mike Trout, you want a public name? There it is. So let's start with those three names and look at the amount of traffic that those three names are bringing into the book and how we can try to navigate that, Joe.
Well, Shane McClanahan, like Sandy Alcantara, returning from Tommy John surgery and a little bit more removed. So Alcantara pitched the entire 2023 season, whereas McClanahan only had 21 starts. So he's got even more of a window of recovery. So I think that's clearly why he's at the top. Then there's Jacob deGrom, who did come back towards the end last year, made a few appearances, and obviously in terms of names and star power, a pretty big one, and you're getting a 4-1 return on him, which is really intriguing. Texas looking for him to lead that rotation. Gone are, the Max Scherzers of the world and some other names that have been in that rotation in the past. So really, they need deGrom to be deGrom again. And I think maybe we're so removed from Jacob deGrom being so dominant that maybe it's time to look back at that investment. And then there's Mike Trout, who is obviously very tempting. And I think there's some value with the Angels offense this year. And I know that sounds like a weird thing for me to say, but if you look at the lineup, they bring in Soler, right, who's going to hit behind Trout. Trout probably earmarked hit 3, maybe 2. Rengifo, when healthy, again, another good player here. Chenal, Hoppy, these are all guys that could possibly take a step forward. But it's that temptation of Trout, but the realization that it doesn't matter if he moves to left field, doesn't matter if he plays a DH. You just don't know how many games you're going to get out of him. So for me, it does come to one of those pitchers, and I'm going to go with Jacob deGrom because I think that's the story and the narrative. And remember, when we're talking about these awards, they're media awards. They're narrative-driven. And for a big star that hasn't done much, who was the best pitcher in baseball for about a 3-year window, and he has been basically irrelevant for about a 3-year window, it's a nice story to have a comeback situation like Jacob deGrom. Now, can it sustain? Can it last? I don't know. The only thing that hangs me up with McClanahan, to be honest with you, is what does this new ballpark situation look like for Tampa Bay? Because he's not going to be in that pitcher's paradise anymore. This is going to be a different scenario, playing in that Steinbrenner field, playing outdoors, the humidity, the rain. Like, there's going to be a lot of effects, physically to the baseball in that place. And I just don't know how it's going to play. I think McClanahan's going to be great. I'm excited about him. It's funny to me that he is so much further in ADP ahead of Sandy Alcantara. I don't quite wrap my mind around that. But at the same time, Matt, I think it's a very encouraging list. I'm going to go with deGrom, though, because I think that's the biggest narrative. Where do you want to go with the American League Comeback Player of the Year if you had to put an early wager on it?
Well, while the deGrom number is near and dear to my heart and speaks to me, I think it's your Met fandom that's coming in there. And I like what you're saying about the elements. A lot of people don't think about it. And that's what I love about this show and this network is you get that higher order thinking. Who really thinks about humidity and gripping the ball and all this thing? Well, that's why there's home road splits. And that's why you go and you look at those things. Now you know, and information is power. For me, it's McClanahan. And to your point about the difference in the atmosphere and the environment, there's a 6-man rotation. And then there's Fairbanks in the back end. And that gives you what I call win equity. That means you can go out there and just be dominant or commanding enough for 6 innings. See, that's the thing in baseball now, and that's where my betting mind is going. The good teams are playing 6 to 7 inning baseball and then turning it over to a bullpen, and that's what I'm looking for that win equity, things of that nature from a wagering standpoint. So that's why I like McClanahan's number. I saw it at plus 350, but like I said, you can cash out and just keep looking at different books, keep looking at different apps because there's a lot out there. Let's go to the National League because speaking of a lot out there, there's far more options. National League Comeback Player of the Year for this upcoming season. We talked about Sandy Alcantara, Ronald Acuna Jr., remember him, Spencer Strider, Brandon Woodruff, Matt McClain, Kodai Senga. The list goes on and on. Joe, there's an obvious choice here, and there's some nice money attached to it.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of good choices here. And just, for the record, just because the Mets had a nice little run last year, it doesn't make me not a self-loathing Met fan. Okay, if I'm giving you a Met, it's despite of my fandom, in spite of my fandom, and not because of my fandom. Believe me, this one's tougher. Matt McClain, certainly a really interesting one at plus 650. I worry about Woodruff being able to sustain, the health through a whole season. Spencer Strider's not going to come back till hopefully midway through the season, maybe. So that's a risky one to me. The one that stands out is Ronald Acuna, who last year missed pretty much all the season, plus 500. It's a great return. He's an everyday player. I think these awards sometimes are a little bit easier for everyday players. So I'm going to go with Ronald Acuna, a guy who is not that far removed from, a 40-70 season. I mean, the guy's unbelievably good. Now, he might miss that first month of the season, but that's okay. 5 good months of Ronald Acuna is all you need. And if he gets back to being Ronald Acuna, just like he did 2 years ago when he came back from that other knee, people were worried, remember? Oh, man, I don't know if he's going to be able to steal bases again or all this stuff. He was fine. He was great. So hopefully now 2 good knees. Ronald Acuna is that guy. But who is that guy for you that stands out for National League Rookie of the Year?
So I like that you said that it should be an everyday player because those players stay in your mind more. I'm going to give you Trey Turner. I can't find a number on him, but like I said, it's still early in the wagering season. But I think this year the Phils have everything. If they have a good lineup, I think it gets even better with a guy like Max Kepler. The staff has a big 3. We talk about that all the time. And they add Jesus Luzardo. They have a really good bullpen, a lot of good names. So give me Trey Turner on a resurgent Philly team to get that Comeback Player of the Year award.
Look at you. I give you all these good options, and you go completely off the board. This is it. This is going to be the next 6 months. I could feel it in my bones. This is it right here. The offseason was pretty good for a lot of teams, but there were a few teams that might have been left holding the bag and might have missed out on some opportunities. We come back, we're going to take a look at some offseason losers. That's right. Not every team did the job this offseason. We'll be right back after this.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that
that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience, who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They have 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports. Today, Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia giving you everything you need in order to dominate, whether it be season-long fantasy, DFS, straight-up wagering, we've got you covered. And Joe, the Major League Baseball season is a living, breathing thing, and we must adapt. And there's different strategies, different portions of the season, depending on the calendar, depending on what's going on. You want to be at a certain place, I think, come June, as far as being up financially with the house money. And there's smart ways to do that. Let's identify the off-season losers and then perhaps the winners. Let's start with the losers to see how we could take advantage seemingly. Now, you say the Baltimore Orioles are an off-season loser. So take it from there.
Well, look, I don't know how you go from losing arguably your best offensive player in Anthony Santander, right? And then your front of the rotation ace, and you don't replace either, and you're a better team year over year. I mean, explain that to me like I'm a 5-year-old because I don't understand it at all. So you lose the lineup protection for a lot of the kids with Santander, 40 home run power. You're losing 200 innings, a guy, Corbin Burns, who, you know, has been a Cy Young candidate every year for the last 5 years. And I understand that to a certain degree, the Baltimore Orioles are saying, well, we still got all this youth coming. We expect more of Jackson Holiday. We expect Kobe Mayo to come up. We expect. That's fine, except it hasn't happened yet, right? So Gunnar Henderson, yeah, the guy's a star. He's up there. That's cool. Rutschman's up there. The rest of this lineup is still, I think, pretty iffy. You know, at what point, what are you getting out of Ryan Mountcastle at this stage of his career, a guy whose numbers have regressed the last 3 years? Colton Cowser had some moments last year, but again, kind of regressed as the season went on. And then you look at this rotation. Grayson Rodriguez, I love. I think he could be an ace. But after that, you've got Zach Eflin. Charlie Morton is older than Matt Striker, and that is old, my friends. That is old. And then you've got Dean Kremer. Sagano is the pitcher they signed this offseason. To me, that's not enough. If the Orioles are smart, they would take some of this youth, especially some of this youth where they've got redundancies at these positions in the infield, and try to make a deal. Go get a Dylan Cease, right? Go get a Michael King, or go get a Sandy Alcantara at some point. Go get one of these pitchers, because I don't know how they compete with the Yankees, with what the Red Sox have done this offseason, and what the Blue Jays look like. They've kind of assembled there too, taking one of those Orioles with them in Anthony Santander. So I don't know what you look at this team, but for me, Matt, when I look at this Orioles team, and I know our producer, Sam, agrees with me too, that this might be a regression year. It didn't go the way they wanted. They fell short of the World Series. It was very disappointing, but right now their win total is 88.5, Matt.
Yeah.
This doesn't look like an 88.5 roster, at least to me. Your thoughts?
Okay, so first thing, you made a great point, and don't think that's not maybe a plan about at some point in the season going out and getting one of these high-tier pitchers because of all the youth and all the capital that this team has. You ask about the win total. I'm glad you asked, Joe, because, again, it's about these teams that can play 7-inning baseball and then turn it over to a bullpen. Felix Bautista is back, and he was dominant. Then Andrew Kittredge is there. Then it's like Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto. It's basically every guy that you and I have streamed over the last 3 years for Sades is in this Orioles bullpen. And that's going to lead to victories for this team. I think they can kind of trim the fat and figure out what they're doing. Another loser that you wanted to talk about, I believe, is the Milwaukee Brewers. Thoughts?
Yeah, Willy Adames goes to San Francisco. That's a huge loss for this lineup. I don't feel comfortable of the number of games played for Christian Yelich every year. Jackson Chourio is a star. And if he continues to grow at that rate, maybe that's enough to compensate. At the same time, I'm looking at this rotation. After Freddie Peralta, the only addition they made was Nestor Cortez, and I'm supposed to get excited about that? Like, it's just not enough. You lose Devin Williams in a trade. You lose Frankie Montas, who, give you some innings at least, probably. So this one is very puzzling to me, where you lose a guy in the middle of your order, the guy at the back of your bullpen who's been so good. And I know McGill was okay there filling in, so you feel pretty decent about that. I know every year I look at Milwaukee and I'm kind of underwhelmed. At the same time, Matt, I'm underwhelmed again, yet they exceed expectations. I'm a little skeptical they can do that this year. I think the Cubs are better. I think Cincinnati takes a step forward. I think Pittsburgh takes a step forward. And this division's a little bit more competitive, and you're nodding, so you must agree.
Well, you're making good points, but you mentioned that closer role. Hear me now and believe me later. Joel Payamps will go into that role. But this is a young team. You mentioned Chourio, he's 20. Frelick's like 24. Terang's 25. Ortiz is 26. Tyler Black's like 24. These teams can be disruptive, and those teams mess up a lot of my bets, Joe.
82.5 is the win total for the Milwaukee Brewers, and they feel like kind of a 500 team. But in that division, I just wonder, maybe they're a little bit less. But it's okay. Not everything is doom and gloom. Some teams won the offseason. We'll tell you who when we come back right after this.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scaver when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today, where the two hosts may or may not move their heads in synchronicity, kind of like Night at the Roxbury, to our opening theme. I'm just saying that there may or may not be video of that happening somewhere. Joe, stop it. All right, we were talking about off-season losers and how to approach them from a wagering standpoint here on FST. So now let's go to He's Still Doing It, just for those out there in Radio Land. Just want you to know. And if you're doing it in your car or whatever, good for you. That's awesome. Off-season winners now. And again, how do we attack them? Because the public is really on a lot of these teams. We're going to start here with the Chicago Cubs. Everyone talking about the addition of Kyle Tucker. Ryan Presley on the back end gives them that win equity. There's an arm here or there that may help. Joe, you and I often talk about teams needing a big three when it comes to big three pitchers, big three bats, a closer and a manager. In your football books, you often talk about a quarterback and a coach. In baseball, we're talking about a closer and a manager, a bullpen and a manager. The Cubs have that. The three pitchers are Steele, Imanaga, and I think if Assad is healthy, you like Matthew Boyd. Let's talk Cubbies.
Yeah, first of all, let's talk about Night at the Roxbury being a very underrated SNL comedy. I just want to put that out there. It's pretty funny. You go back, it actually holds up a little. Grieco! Richard! Everybody loves little Richard Grieco. Yeah, all right. So, Butabi brothers aside, Kyle Tucker is the acquisition to talk about. Kyle Tucker in a contract year, playing it out for the Cubs. It's a good hitting environment, so he goes from one good hitting environment to another. It's a good hitting division for him, too, in some of the ballparks. He's going to play in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, right? All those good spots there. Matthew Boyd, you mentioned, coming over, too, had a really good flourish of the season, a left-handed starter. If maybe he's healthy and figured it out, this could be a nice addition to that rotation. But the Cubs already have that 1-2 punch at the top with Imanaga and Justin Steele. Those guys are vastly underrated still. And now you get Presley to close out games. Tyon's there, too. So I feel like the Cubs are maybe one more pitcher away, but you look at the rest of this offense and the lineup looks so different when you put Kyle Tucker in it, right? Because you got a real superstar. The rest of this lineup is good, right? Swanson, Bush, Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki's a nice player, but it's lacking star power. And Kyle Tucker brings that to the Cubs. And I think the Cubs, with the Cardinals regressing, with Pittsburgh still feeling like they're a little ways away maybe offensively, I think the Cubs smell blood in the water in this division, and I like how aggressive they've been in the last two off seasons, especially this year. So I think the Cubbies are going to be in it, which is going to really be exciting because, I feel like baseball is better when the Cubs are better.
Nicely done. There's your soundbite. Let's clip that, put that out to all socials, because that right there is a really good statement. It's almost an anti-Dodger statement, if you will. There's two different feelings, right? You have the doom, and you have the Cubbies. All right, let's talk Boston Red Sox here. We talked about them a bit at the top of the show, adding some pitching, adding some bats. Again, it comes down to bullpen for me. I think if guys like Liam Hendricks and Aroldis Chapman should falter or wear thin as the season goes on, then it's Garrett Whitlock that needs to come in and do the heavy lifting. There's a lot of pitching on this ball club, a lot, and a lot of hitting. I'm just hoping the prices aren't reflective of the public is really on this team, Joe. Talk about the Sox.
Well, I mean, it's a public team, so I understand why they're excited. And we talked a lot about Bregman in the opening segment, but I want to talk more about Garrett Crochet because this is an emerging superstar pitcher. This is a lefty who's striking out guys at a 13, 14 K per 9 rate. I mean, it's absurd as a starting pitcher what this guy is capable of. The question is, how many innings is he going to give you this year? Does he give you 175? Does he give you 180? Is he going to be okay when you get to the playoffs? This was a guy that got shut down last year. So that's a huge addition to this. And again, the front of this rotation, and he's young, and he's going to be able to grow here with this organization. They're going to be able to pay him too. Walker Buehler, who, if he can regain the past form and in the end of the playoffs, that the last couple of games are against the Mets and the Yankees, he looked much more like Walker Buehler. So maybe he was finding it again. I don't want to put too much stock into a small sample, but those last couple starts that he made in the playoffs where that ball was really moving around a lot more, that to me was very encouraging. You put him with Bayo and Houck and Cutter Crawford, potentially there, even Giolito on a returning Tommy John at some point. That's a pretty deep rotation. So now all of a sudden you've bolstered your offense with Bregman, you've bolstered your bullpen with Chapman, and now you've bolstered your rotation with two possibly very legitimate front-end starters. The Boston Red Sox had a really good offseason.
So now when you mention this team that has 6 deep starters, and we're seeing that, there's a handful of teams that look like they're going to roll 6 deep. You can catch a team on a nice swing. I'm making it up. Maybe you catch the Red Sox, they're out playing the Angels, and they're out playing the Athletics. You can catch 6 straight days of some really good matchups, even though I think the A's are going to be a lot better than people think. And that's how it's going to be, how you want to wager on these teams. I was tempted to skip this next team and go right to the next one, but I just can't. The New York Mets are indeed winners with Juan Soto. Bringing back Pete Alonso is the big linchpin for me, because now you really have something to wager upon. Joe, when we talk about the big three, there's Lindor, Soto, Alonso. I think Vientos can be in that conversation as well. I think if Alvarez takes the next step, now you got a really deep lineup. Senga's got to be good. Clay Holmes is going to be fun. I think Griffin Canning is even there, if I'm not mistaken, and the bullpen is what it is. Let's talk about the Mets.
Well, Juan Soto, the biggest offseason acquisition by any team. So just from there, they're a winner. But bringing Pete Alonso back and lengthening this lineup is huge, because now you're talking about Lindor, you're talking about Soto, you're talking about Alonso, Vientos, Nimmo. This is a really solid, deep lineup here. And they bring back Winker. I think Vientos is going to be a star. I think he's got the possibility to hit 40 home runs this year. I think he's that good. And what about Francisco Alvarez, who was one of the best minor league hitters that we've seen in a long time? He hasn't even come close to reaching his potential. Now, I know the starting rotation looks underwhelming a little bit, and that's fair. Kodai Senga returning from injury again last year. You saw him a little bit in the playoffs. But what's so interesting about the Mets is, they bring back Sean Manaea, and they've been an organization that's done a really good job of finding these pitchers with talent and getting the most out of them, right? You change the arm angle and the position on the rubber for Sean Manaea, and he basically became Chris Sale last year. And that's not hyperbolic. Go look at the numbers. It was insane what he did in the second half. You hope that maybe you can get the same thing out of Montas you get out of Severino last year. Another guy that was off the scrap heap, people rolled their eyes. But something about this Mets pitching organization right now and what the Stearns regime is doing is obviously smart, and they're getting a lot out of the return on investment with pitchers. I'm going to give you a Clay Holmes comparison, and I want you guys to take this to heart. Think about Derek Lowe years ago with the Boston Red Sox, another guy who was in the Boston Red Sox bullpen, right? Extreme ground ball pitcher, was effective in the bullpen. They convert him to a starter. Remember how good Derek Lowe was as a starter? I think Clay Holmes can be Derek Lowe with a bit higher strikeout rate. I think that's what he could become potentially. If you look at all the deeper metrics on him, they are extremely similar. And I think if you're looking for a pathway to what Holmes might be as a starter, it's a Derek Lowe with more Ks. And that could be really good for the New York Mets. So I would love for them to go out there and get one more big starting pitcher, a Cease, a King, somebody like that. I don't think they're done. And I think they know exactly what they're doing, which is, hey, we're going to hang tight and then continue to make the deals we have to. But the one thing they're not going to overdo is overpay for pitching in long-term contracts, because that has been a huge albatross on this organization in the past, and the Stearns regime just is not doing it. So good on them to have the discipline, and we'll see what this rotation gives them. But Juan Soto, that's a game changer.
So you're saying to pay a lot of money for long-term contracts. Let's talk about the New York Yankees here and what they've done. They had Max Fried on an 8-year deal. Devin Williams comes over in a trade. Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt. I think there's a ton of potential here. I'm really excited to see how the Martians bat, what it does to this lineup. I want to see if fan favorites like Peraza get playing time. I think the entire staff could all take a next step as Cole takes a step backwards. I think the pen is good. Talk about the Yankees. Take us out.
Yeah, look, I think 8 years is a lot for Max Fried. I think it's too many for Max Fried, a guy who's already had some iffy arm issues in the last couple of years. What they did was they spread the wealth. They said, okay, we can't pay Soto 50, 60 million a year, so we'll spread the money around. And that was smart, because the Yankees did lack a lot of depth last year. Goldschmidt, I'm not sure what's left in the tank. I got to say the numbers are not very encouraging, so that's not great. Can he help himself by going to Yankee Stadium? Sure. And then potentially Devin Williams at the back of this bullpen. That's a huge help, because that was a big deficit for the Yankees in 2024. So if Fried stays healthy and Cody Bellinger can have a renaissance, the fact that he plays first base and outfield gives you a little bit of flexibility there too. So I like what the Yankees have done, but there was one team that once again won the offseason. We'll tell you who when we come back.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Pisapia when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20 in 34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today. Matt and Joe with you here. Such a great response to the biggest winners segment on social media at SportsGrid TV that we're going to carry over here and discuss the obvious, right? So the Dodgers are clearly the biggest winners of the offseason. Joe, I just think every day they're going to be minus 350, if not minus 4. You're going to have to try to find some really nice niche matchups. So, I mean, everyone gets it. We all get it. How do we make money on
it? Finding the opportunities to bet against them, the 60 games that they lose. I mean, I don't know. Like you got 50 to 60 times, folks. That's what you got. So make them count because you're not going to win 162 games. This rotation, though, now adds Blake Snell to it and Roki Sasaki. So you got that going on. I think the Blake Snell one is the real win. That's the one that's the big win here. A guy who was absolutely lights out in the second half of the season after a rocky start and a late start to the season because Scott Boras isn't as good as his job as he thinks he is. Teoscar Hernandez returns. That's a huge deal for them. And then the bullpen, right? So you get Kirby Yates to close some games out. Then you add Tanner Scott, the best lefty on the market, and Blake Trinan comes back. Yikes. I mean, that's really important when you get into this postseason is you need those guys. Then you bring in Kim on a 3-year deal and bring back Kiki Hernandez. So continuity for the Dodgers returns, bullpen help returns. And then on top of that, you add a Cy Young starter to the top of this rotation that, by the way, already had guys like Tyler Glasnow and Yamamoto and a bunch of other guys who are really, really good at their jobs. So it's very difficult when the reigning defending champions have the best offseason and the best season. So right now, the only thing that can stop the Dodgers is probably health. That's it. At the end of the day, you look at this rotation, it can stay healthy. It's going to be really good. The bullpen's going to be really good. And man, that lineup has got 3 MVP candidates in it. It's stunning what the Dodgers have done. Now it's just a matter of can they execute. Last year, the chalk was good for the Dodgers. We'll see if they can do it 2 years in a row.
All right, let's transition now and go by the numbers. This is something we were doing during the football season, and it really gave us some clear-headed thinking moving forward. So, Joe, some of these numbers are really interesting. Lowest ERA in a debut season. There are some great names here, such as Jose Fernandez, rest his soul, Mark the Bird Fidrich. But at the top, is Paul Skeens. Now, I want to go on record and say I like Pittsburgh. I like them. I think they're going to be a fun team to wager upon. There's a lot of reasons to like them. But what does this particular stat mean for you with regards to Skeens and going into the season?
Well, what I think about this is just, once again, Jose Fernandez was a phenom. I know a lot of us didn't see Mark Fidrich pitch in 76 necessarily. I was born in 78, so I didn't get to see a lot. I've seen some tape. I know the name. I know the highlights. But Paul Skeens was special last year, and you didn't need numbers to tell you that. You just needed a set of eyes. This year, it's about the projections of what you might get. Now, the ATC projections, which is the one that takes all the projections together, has him at 29 starts, 176 innings, and a 2.76 ERA with 11.2 K per nine. Does that sound achievable in your mind for Paul Skeens, or do you think maybe he's not ready for that kind of an innings jump necessarily?
No, absolutely. I think, and knock wood, I think this is the kind of kid who has a rubber arm. And I also think that the staff and the pen allow him the luxury in the lineup. Oniel Cruz is a star when he is healthy. Brian Reynolds is the best kept secret in baseball. If you have all these things going for you, Skeens has this confidence. He doesn't have to go out there and throw that ball. He pitches. So yes, I think it's attainable.
All right, let's move on to more numbers because the White Sox last year were pretty awful. And I think this number right here gives you a context of how awful they are. 52.5, by the way, is their win total for this year. I don't know, Matt. I don't know. I mean, I'm feeling the under. I don't know why. It's really bad. Luis Robert is the last man standing there, and I can't wait for him to land somewhere else because that guy can be a game changer. And right now, he is a huge, huge discount you're getting on this guy. And I know he's not a lot of help around him, but I just don't think he's going to be a White Sox that much longer. But the White Sox scored 507 runs in 162 games last year. Just for context, the Diamondbacks scored 505 runs in a span of 81 games last year. That's how bad the White Sox were. And yes, the Diamondbacks offense was pretty ridiculous in the second half of the year. But when we're talking about value, and we're talking about guys like Luis Robert, this is a 30-20 kind of player. And currently he is going way later than he should be. And I don't understand why you're getting such a discount on Robert at this stage, because to me, I would take him over Kyle Schwarber. I would take him over Wyatt Langford, who hasn't done it yet he's going behind all of those guys currently in drafts. I recognize we want more help, and there's not a lot of help and things to be excited about in Chicago. But at the same time, I think you can't overlook there's still some opportunity there with value in drafts, and Robert's one of them. But Matt, this is a very telling statistic here about just how bad that offense was in Chicago in 2024.
Well, I think overall we want to look at it, especially in April. We want to look for unders. So when we know straight away that this team can't score runs, and I get the whole Luis Robert thing. He's my third favorite action figure, but he's in the mud, so I don't want to take him out and play with him. There's no investability there. But for me, when you know a team can't score runs, or you know a team is in an environment like when you look at the Rockies and the Reds, and this is how, especially in April and into May, when we know unders are going to lean because guys are still getting their feel, this is how we build our bank. This is a great stat. The last one I want you to close out with, I mentioned Cincinnati. Ellie De La Cruz stole third base 20 times last year. Only 7 other teams had more than 20. Think about what this implies for runs scored, for guys hitting behind him, and Francona's on that bench, Joe.
Yeah, Francona, I think a great addition to this young team. Look, whether it was with the Phillies or the Red Sox or the Cleveland Guardians, then Indians, Terry Francona is a winner, and he knows how to get a young team to compete, and Ellie De La Cruz is an absolute stud. More on him in hour 2. One more incredible stat. If only the Mariners could hit a little bit more. Look how good the Mariners were last year in terms of record. When they scored 3 or more runs at home, they were 43-7. 43-7. Can we just get some offense this year? I know Randy Arozarena came in last year. That's a big positive, but a lot of questions about the climate there, a lot of questions about the batter's eye there, and maybe the struggles of Julio Rodriguez. Something's got to give here in Seattle. They've got to fix this trend. Hopefully it's just a matter of some better lineup protection, but man, oh man, that pitching is so good. Can we just score some runs? Just a couple runs. 3. When we come back, a deep dive. Don't go anywhere.
slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Skovron, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20 in 34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia. Joe was talking about a recent trip to Vegas, saw the Sphere, and I feel like, Joe, that's your brain. I think the world can see that's how it was. Like, I want to do a deep dive. Let's go into Alex Bregman, but do it with Joe's brain sphere. We'll make a graphic for that.
Well, I imagine because my bald head, you could project things onto it. You know, like that little happy face or the weird colors and stuff. Everyone will be very excited about seeing that. The Sphere is amazing. I got to tell you, if you're in Vegas for anything, go see the Sphere. It's like walking into the future. It's very futuristic. It's very cool. I highly recommend it. It's a good time. And it'll keep you out of trouble in Las Vegas too. Save your money. But Alex Bregman, the Red Sox did not save their money. They spent it. That's right, on Alex Bregman. And just for context, last year, this offense wasn't that bad. They were actually 9th in runs scored, ahead of the Minnesota Twins and the Houston Astros and the Cubs. But more runs, good for Major League Baseball. More runs, good for the Boston Red Sox. And Alex Bregman, you might say, well, you're not really a game changer. Well, consider this. In 98 games at Fenway Park, he had a 490 on-base percentage and a 750 slugging. So that's a pretty big sample, 98 games. It's not 12 where you go, you can't really take that into context. So clearly from a ballpark perspective, this is a place where Alex Bregman was seeing the ball pretty well, feeling pretty confident. Now, the one big change is going to have to happen here is understanding the Boston fan is a lot like the New York or Chicago fan. They're less forgiving. So if Alex Bregman does not get out of the gates on a high note, it could get a little rough out for him, a little different than, say, the Houston Astros media or the Houston Astros fan base. I think a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more caring, dare I say. They love their guys. Well, places like Boston, New York, they love their guys unless they're hating their guys because they're not performing. So Bregman needs to get off to a hot start to make this all work. But certainly those numbers are encouraging, Matt. When you look at them, you have to feel like, all right, Boston did their homework. They brought in a guy who clearly can hit in this ballpark, clearly is going to be an asset for them, and I think also be a cushion for some of these young players that they want to develop, that they don't have to push them too quickly.
Yes, 1,000%. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. And, you know, they say that it's smarter on SportsGrid. So you mentioned the fan that boos, the fickle fan. Well, us here, we understand that Bregman plays a much larger role. Just his presence alone in the lineup makes teams pitch differently, makes situational baseball different. Alex Cora, you guys ever play Uno? Alex Cora now has a draw 4 or a wild card with him. And he doesn't have to do anything, but he has it. And that to me is, I don't want people to get fooled into investing in Bregman in isolation, but his presence around that lineup and what it forces other teams to do, therein is the money, I think, Joe.
I think you're right. And I think they've set themselves up really well in the future here. Again, I don't expect a lot of Trevor Story. I know they expect him to play shortstop. We'll see how that goes. The guy never plays games. I thought it was a terrible signing in the first place. Didn't like it. But you have Christian Campbell coming through, right, who has a lot of Mookie Betts-like qualities, right? Great athlete, can play the infield, can play the outfield. Rafaela, who was playing some shortstop last year, he's going to move out to center field. Okay, there's flexibility. It does feel like eventually you want to move Devers from third to first. It feels like a path that they want to take. The problem is Tristan Casas is there. So what are you going to do? You're going to put Devers into the DH spot? Maybe. But if you do want to move guys around, or maybe Tristan Casas does struggle a little bit, I don't think he will. I think Casas is ready, and I think that guy's got enormous left-handed power that is really going to surprise people this year. I think he's going to hit 30-plus homers in 2025. I'm looking at the flexibility Bregman gives you, and right now he's at second, but doesn't mean he's going to stay there. You could end up with Campbell at second. You could end up with Bregman at third, Devers at first, and Casas in the DH spot. There's a lot of things that can go on now because you have the flexibility. And God forbid you have an injury. Now you have a lot of flexibility too. And if you look at a team like the Yankees were a team last year, I think, struggled because of the depth, right? They had a very top-heavy team. This year, they did a good job of addressing some of those issues and bringing some of that depth in there and that flexibility in guys like Cody Bellinger. Because I feel like, Matt, in this day and age, you really need that flexibility in your roster because injuries are inevitable.
Are you kidding me? 162 games? We bemoan the fact, like, as wagerers, we have to take into consideration it's 162 games. But as fans and as players, you talk about the toll that it takes. April is much different than July, totally. But how about the fact that we're actually talking Yankees and Red Sox, and it's not even close to first pitch? That, my friends, tells you something.
Juan Soto just arrived at camp, by the way. We just heard it. So therefore, I'm very excited. You can tell right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about some MVPs in hour 2, some Cy Young potential investments, and some teams that could even surprise you in 2025. So get ready, folks. Hour 2 of FST coming at you after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass on the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.